Dr. Jazz.
And Michael, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you too.
Yeah. You played in my hometown.
I know.
With Sonny.
I know. What a beautiful country you have, man, and the
Yeah.
people there are so awesome, man. You know,
I was on that gig. That was a long time ago.
that was
2005
years ago, right? Something like that. Or,
Yeah.
I think it was 2004 or 5. Yeah,
4 or 5.
like
Yeah, it was a beautiful gig. Yeah, I remember.
with Sonny. Today's John Coltrane's birthday too. Happy birthday, Mr. Train.
Exactly. So that's a nice day to have an interview, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But man, you know, I'll just jump in. I have you on so many records, and you know, when we emailed each other, you said like you're recording a new album basically last week, and I wanted to ask you what is it and with whom and.
Well, actually, you know, I've been working with the ESP label, and we put out a record last year called Abstractions and Lime Caverns.
Yes, which is burning, by the way. I want to talk about that as well. So, but
and actually, Steve Holt, who's the producer for ESP, we were supposed to do a date on September 11th, but it got postponed until in the next few months. So I haven't,
okay,
to postpone it for business reasons, but it's still online, and I'm looking forward to doing it. But did you get a copy of Abstractions?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to it on Bandcamp, and it's beautiful,
cool.
man. It's really beautiful, your compositions. And I mean, I wanted to first ask you about Abstractions. Like, I mean, I know you played with Jay and Tarus a lot, and but how did you hook up with Frank, Lacy, and it's so nice to hear you with trombone. I mean, I love French horn, actually, and trombone.
Yeah, actually, right. On that record, he's playing French horn. Yeah, he's a sweetheart of a cat and a brilliant musician. He plays trumpet, trombone, and French horn all equally as well. And I was looking for that sound because when I was a kid coming up, I used to love the sound of Julius Watkins with Charlie Rouse. They had a group called the Jazz.
Sure.
And wow, wouldn't it be beautiful to have like that French horn, excuse me, with the, you know, I was playing soprano with him, and it's a beautiful sound. And he's a brilliant, sweetheart of a cat, and brilliant guy, man. Just super, super high elite musician, Frank Lacy.
Have you guys ever played before together?
You know, we played in a few small contexts, but this was the first time we did a recording together when we rehearsed at my place here. And you're in my kitchen here in Manhattan. And so this was the first time we documented music together. But we had played a few times in different configurations over the years. But we knew each other and mutual friends. We have a good mutual friend, great bassist, Tyler Mitchell.
Okay. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful combo to hear. And
thank you.
It's nice, 2 horns basically, and no harmonic instruments. I love that. It's just like so much freedom there, you know.
No, and just the voice to get the sound, and French horn's a beautiful, it's just a beautiful, warm singing, you know, singing. And there's not a lot of guys in improvised music or jazz that are, you know, working on that instrument. John Clark, great, and then Vincent Chansey, another fine,
and Tom Varner,
and Tom Varner. So there's a few.
That's nice. Yeah, beautiful. How did you write music for that one? I mean, or in general, you know, what's your process when writing music? I mean,
I just, usually just improvise like a thought, and then I write a lot of stuff. I'm writing every day, and I just write stuff down, and then I go back to it and what sounds good, and then hopefully it comes out memorable. I mean, my idea about writing this music is to have memorable melodies, you know, and other people approach it their way. That's kind of my way, old school, if you will.
So you basically
And
play on the horn and then you write it on, or
yeah, I'll improvise a line
okay.
and write it down and then go, wow, man, how do I connect that? And then so it resolves at the end, as long as there's a resolution. That's really the key. And then a lot of times I can go to the piano. You can do it reverse. You can go to the piano and write a bass progression or chord progression and write a melody on top of that, or vice versa. All my melodic themes could have chords applied to them if you wanted to,
Mm.
and a lot do.
Yeah.
A lot do. But I'm like you. I kind of like the idea of just being open and free. Recently, I'm in a great trio with, I don't know if you saw the video, but I did a great trio with the great Warren Smith, who just turned 89. In fact, we saw Harlem the other day with his quartet, but I did a trio with him and Jay Rosen at that same, it's the National Museum in Harlem, Jazz Museum in Harlem. It's a beautiful place, and on 129th Street. And Jazz Foundation, Will Glass, great guy, is producing these concerts up there. And he wanted us to have us go up to the museum and do more of an open, free thing. And we did a tribute to Cecil, the famous trio with Cecil Taylor, Jimmy Lyons, and Sonny Murray, the great Sonny Murray. So we did an improvised trio with that concept, with me, Warren playing vibraphones, and Jay. So, and it came out really nice. And it was, even though the vibraphone's a harmonic instrument, we still did it in that free approach. So it doesn't have to be just because a piano plays chords. It has to be it can be either way. But I think all of it's valid as long as it's beautiful and melodic and soulful.
Yeah, but didn't you do a record with those two guys, also with Joe McPhee, right?
Yes, there's a group I'm part of, group too, called the Blue Reality Quartet.
Yeah.
And great label out of Arkansas named Mahakala Records. And he produced, Chad Fowler produced, thanks to him, he produced us two great recordings. One during the pandemic where we're all wearing masks on the cover.
Okay.
And the other one was the second one called Ellis Island.
Ellis
so
Island, yeah, I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, which is Joe McPhee, Warren Smith, Jay, and myself. And on those two recordings, Warren's playing vibraphone, a lot of it, but also he's playing percussion instruments,
Yeah.
Speaking of Warren, when I was telling somebody yesterday, when I was a kid growing up in San Francisco, I saw Warren with the Aretha Franklin band, directed by King Curtis, and King Curtis wasn't even playing his tenor. He was, so that's how far, I remember Warren from when we were coming up in San Francisco in the summer love days. Bill Graham used to have a place called the Fillmore West in the Winterland.
Oh, sure, yeah. Speaking of San Francisco, I mean, you grew up basically late 60s when it was very crazy back then. Like, what got you excited for jazz and improv? Like, what do you remember? What did you see or the first time?
We were in high school. We were coming up listening to all the blues groups. The chess records. Oh, and sure. Ironically, I went to high school with. Do you know the great group out of Oakland, the Tower of Power?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
so I grew up with Greg Adams. He was in my high school class together.
Really? Oh, wow.
Greg told me he had joined Tower of Power in 1970. And anyways, but we came up listening to all the blues recordings, like on chess, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Sonny Boy Williamson, Willie Dixon. And then we got into the country blues, like, Blind Lemon Jefferson, Robert Johnson, all those guys, And that led to starting listening to like Lester Young, and then we got exposed to Bird and Train, who we already said happy birthday, Train, right?
Yeah.
And all those guys. So by the time we were getting out, in our early formative years, we were really rooted in the blues and jazz. And by that time, I started exploring the new music, and I remember my first recording jazz besides Lester and Charlie Parker was Eddie Harris out of Chicago.
Yeah.
He had
man,
Here Comes. But then all of a sudden I exposed them to the new music, and I got a Ken McIntyre record and the Sonny Simmons record, who I ended up working with.
Yeah.
And Perry Robinson, Funk Dumpling. I had Perry's record on Savoy,
Oh wow.
and that influence. And then Eric Kloss, brilliant genius,
Sure.
saxophone player, most underrated ever. Eric, the great Eric Kloss, had a record on Prestige called Introducing Eric Kloss. He was 16 years old, and he's blind. He's still alive, thank God. And genius. He made masterpieces on Prestige. All those were influenced to me. So then, but we were rooted in the tradition of black music, so we could play blues well. And then so that led me to start working with blues groups to make some money, because
okay, well,
that was a good way and the foundation of the music. So that kind of spearheaded or rocketed my career in music.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
but did you, when have you started first playing with the jazz guys? I mean, already when you were still in San Francisco, or after you moved to the East?
Yeah, no, I was playing out there. Just before that, I just wanted to say, but some of the bands I used to see when I was in San Francisco at the Bill Graham Productions, besides I saw Hendrix twice, was at King. We used to see the Paul Butterfield Blues Band with Mike Bloomfield and Philip Wilson, who ended up playing with, recording with Frank Lowe. He was instrumental in bringing David Sanborn to the Paul Butterfield Blues Band. So we saw Santana. Santana used to be called the Santana Blues Band. And so, we were exposed to all this great music besides the records, that coming up. And then what was so brilliant about Bill Graham, all the producers of today are like amateur compared to that guy. They don't even know what they're doing. This guy was so brilliant that he would have like Roland Kirk, or I saw these groups: Thelonious Monk, Roland Kirk, Miles Davis, Charles Lloyd, The Fourth Way, John Handy. He would have all these jazz groups open up for like the Stones and the Who and Zeppelin, and it was a brilliant way to produce music instead of just this, that, and that. So when we were in high school and coming up, besides hearing all those great San Francisco bands too, we got exposed to all those people I just told you about live. Thelonious Monk when I was like 17 years old with Charlie Rouse, and Miles. I was there in the Bitches Brew concert, so we got to see all that stuff live, besides Hendrix and people like Zeppelin and all those great Cream. They were incredible,
Oh,
but then we
saw
and Freddie King and Aretha Franklin. We saw all those groups too, and it was just a great pool of music to grow up with, and the consciousness of San Francisco, the summer of love. There was a song once called "If You're Going to San Francisco, Be Sure to Wear a Flower in Your Hair."
Sure.
And, if you're going, and then and so it was a wonderful time and a place to grow up. But by that time, after and started working with the blues bands, I started like sitting in with jazz groups, and then I started studying with the great. Well, first there was a guy named Danny Pertiris, and this guy could play like Train, man. He was a monster. He knew how to play sheets of sounds, and I took some lessons with him. And then the great Bishop Norman Williams, I hooked up with him. And by that time, then I was going on the road. I started going on the road and playing with like Sonny Rhodes, and that led to Albert King. And then it kind of took off before I came to New York.
Well, when did you decide to move to New York? When was that?
Well, I did, like I said, I started going on the road and with Albert King. I worked with Albert King, Bobby Bland, and B.B. King. Those are the three big groups that I worked with for like 6 years on the Chitlin circuit, playing baritone saxophone. And it was an honor beyond words. And it's worth it. People say, when are you going to write a book? And so after I did all of that, and like I say, I learned that's the foundation of this music. I felt instead of going to college, music school, I went on the road with those guys. So I was more in a PhD.
Sure.
And I decided to, because I still had the love for jazz and bebop, and I wanted to learn how to play bebop better and free jazz and all that stuff, because I just loved it so much. I decided to make a choice. Instead of staying with those groups and making a great living, I moved to New York in like 83.
83,
and,
okay.
And then, so I'm, a certain way a late bloomer, because But it works different for everybody, you know.
Oh, sure,
And
man. Yeah.
beautiful story, you, me, and you know, all these. I've met so many beautiful. Yesterday, this is why I love living in New York. Yesterday at like 2 o'clock, this brilliant piano player that I work with, he's on one of my recordings. His name is Denton Darien. This guy's incredible, and he just calls me up and said, "Man, I'm downstairs, man. You want to hit?" You know, things like that were just so great. And he came up, we rehearsed,
Oh, that's
jammed, or whatever.
fantastic. Yeah.
But that I moved to New York in 83.
Who were the first people you started playing with in New York? I mean, the first
Well,
gigs?
yeah, that's a good question, man. So when I came, I stayed with a friend of mine, saxophonist Bob Feldman, really sweet art of a cat, a good tenor player out of the Lester Young School. And he was stayed at 43rd and 10th Avenue, right across from Manhattan Plaza. And Manhattan Plaza is a building complex between 9th and 10th Avenue. There's two big buildings where a lot of musicians live. And I met, because I knew from records, I met two guys there. Well, there's so many great guys that were there, you know, that, you know, even when I was there, Dexter Gordon was living there, Woody Shaw. I saw all those guys, you know, great Dave Schnitter, great tenor player. Sure. He still lives there. But I met my good buddy, two guys who I really befriended and became good friends with, Ted Daniel.
Yeah, sure. I love that guy. Yeah, beautiful.
Frank. And so I started a relationship with those two guys, and Ted hired me. He had a great big band called Energy, and he started hiring me in that. And then I started hooking up with Frank, and he was my buddy. And then he got me to meet Gretchen Moncourt, and I did some arrangements for his band. You know, one thing led to another, and then I just started studying with Barry Harris down there at the Jazz Theater. Yeah, I went to Barry's class at the Jazz Cultural Theater, and it was so brilliant, Samo, because at Barry's Cultural Theater, people like Tommy Turrentine were hanging out, C Sharp, Jimmy Vass, Jimmy Lovelace. These are all monsters in bebop and that music. And I saw Clifford Jordan and Charles Davis, and these are all the heavy hitters I knew from the records. So just to be around and I started studying with Frank Foster in arranging class. Oh my God, it was. I still have his writings. You talk about advanced high musical knowledge. That guy was brilliant. So, you know, I wanted to try to absorb it. You can, and then you know what it is. You do the same thing. Then everybody does this, you know, does the same thing. You take and absorb it and try to put it in your own, you know, world, you know, and work on your thing. And that's kind of what I did. And then the chips fall where they fall, you know, and everybody just tries to do the best they can. And, you know, and then we still practice every day.
Oh, wow. Beautiful, man. Yeah.
You know,
you have to. Yeah. If you love it, you will. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. How did, I have that record on CD, Under the Wire, happen. Because it's your debut album, and it's killing, by the way. I love that record. And the band is like incredible. Like, what's the story behind that one?
That's very interesting too. And as a matter of fact, Reggie Nicholson, the drummer of that, he was in the Warren Smith group the other day up there at the museum. So that was 1990. Well, you know, I contacted Matthias Winkelmann at Enja, and so he agreed to do this project with me, but he hadn't met me. And so I had a relationship with all those people before. I just didn't hire them because they all were, besides they're all great artists, you know, but I had a personal relationship with them. And like Ted, I'd been working with him for several years. And then Joe Bowie, this is how long I go back with Joe. When I was with Albert King in 1977, we were on shows when Luther Thomas and Joe Bowie were playing with Tyrone Davis. This is on the Chitlin circuit.
Oh, wow, man.
And
yeah.
Oh, then 1977. So we've been friends till this day, you know. And I got some great tapes with Joe that never come out. When you talk about a brilliant improvising trombone player, he's on the top shelf. Yeah, Joe Bowie, him and George Lewis. Wow, man. Ray Anderson. Those are some top cats, you know. But anyway, so and then William Parker. I was playing with Jamil Moondock, and he was a lot of those gigs. And Reggie, like I say, we were playing with Zane Massey and Roy Campbell, and so I was playing all these guys. And I wrote this music, and I thought, who would play these charts the best. So I had a relationship with them all. It wasn't like I called, like on the second record I did for Black Saint Here At, I played a lot with great Steve Swell, another great trombone player.
Man, yeah.
And I had him on the recording, William, Fred Hopkins, and Dennis. We worked with Dennis Charles. Oh, you talk about a genius. Dennis Charles, people should know about him. He was a genius. And so all those people, I try to have some kind of relationship with them. So there's a friendship, a chemistry, you know. And so when Matthias Winkelmann, this is an interesting story. So when Matthias Winkelmann, he came to New York to pay me and he wanted to meet me. And this is a true story. So he came to my apartment and knocked on the door, and he said, "I'm looking for Michael Marcus." And I said, he turned real red, and he didn't think it was me because he didn't know me. He thought I was somebody else, you know. And he came in, but he was a lovely guy, and he passed away recently, you know. And his quality of his productions are always first class. And so he decided to do a second record on me, and he came to New York with the great John Patton and Eddie Gladden. And I'm in the studio with John Patton, Gladden at Rudy Van Gelder's. But unfortunately, John Patton was having some personal problems at that time. And so it affected his time schedule. So unfortunately, Matthias was on like a European American thing, and he had to postpone the date, and it never happened again because it was. That's all. It's just life, you know. It was just that happened that way, and he had to go right back to Europe. So we only got a couple tunes done that day. It would need to be a 2-day session, but Matthias only wanted to do it in a 1-day session, so it got delayed, you know, and never got completed. So I still have a few cuts of me with John Patton, and Rudy.
That must be a burning one, actually.
Oh yeah, well, the 2 cuts I got, one's a swinger and one's a ballad, you know.
Wow.
Yeah,
beautiful.
A tearjerker.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like, did you? I mean, you became a band leader quite late. I mean, for today's standards, we're immediately comfortable in that role of leading bands. I mean.
Yeah, you know, I mean, like I said before, it's like everything works for everybody at a different time, you know. I had a lot of experience before I started being a band leader, you know.
That helps,
So that's why, and I like the idea of a band leader because I write original music. And so you have to make a decision, and when you make your decision, how it works for everybody is just different. It just worked for me that way, you know. So you know, as the Tower of Power, we go back to the Tower of Power tune, I'm still a young man.
True, yeah. No, I mean, you've done so much stuff. Obviously, it's like since then, there's so much music that it's incredible. Oh.
Yeah, I hope to keep going because you know, as like you keep getting better at your art and you develop, and you want it to be, you know, you want to give a story to people so they can grasp something. So it's not so ephemeral which is good too, but also you want to make it lasting. So that's why it makes all those classic records so great, like Blue Note records. You know, every time you go back and hear Tina Brooks, it'll make you cry. Every time you go back and Art Pepper, it'll make you cry. Guitar player, hear Wes Montgomery, will make you cry. You know, so
Grant Green, whoever.
Great art lasts the test of time.
Yeah, definitely. You know, we started this talk mentioning that I saw you in Maribor with Sonny and the Cosmosmatics. How did your story with Sonny begin and that band? I mean, it's one of the like early 2000s, one of the most burning groups I've heard. I mean, what was your story with Sonny?
Well, that's a great story. Well, when I'll go back to that in a second, but just to mention what you said about the Cosmosmatics. Yeah, it was really, we were always surprised how we didn't get the respect that we did. You know, we didn't get the respect that we should have got in the industry because it was such a tight band, particularly in the avant-garde arena, if you want to say that word.
Sure. Yeah.
We were tighter than 95% of them, and like more in the tradition of Art Blakey or Horace Silverman, you know, tight, you know, like the old days, like the way Sonny was with, you know, when he played with his wife Barbara Donald, you know, or like, you know, the way Ornette and Don Cherry, we were tight. Like, the Cosmosmatics never got the recognition that they deserved. Period.
Yeah.
my relationship started with Sonny that so it's an interesting, great story. So I told you working back in the Bay Area in the 70s, I was getting hired for a lot of blues sessions. And I got hired to play one with a great guitar player in Oakland named High Tide Harris. And he just had done a soundtrack to the movie Lead Belly, a talented cat. And he called me, said, "Hey man, there's the alto player coming to the session that sounds like Bird." And I go, "You mean the Bishop Norman Williams?" Because he was another great alto player that played in that tradition. And he goes, "No, Sonny Simmons." And I said, "Oh my God, you're kidding me." Because I knew the Cry, like I told you when I was growing up in high school, we had that. Yeah. And then 2 ESPs, the ones with his wife, Barbara Donald, Staying on the Watch and Music of the Spheres. And so I got to the record date, man. I said, "Sonny, man, Michael Marcus, how you doing, man? It's an honor to meet you. Pleasure, blah, blah, blah." And I got a great photo of Samo from that session still. I look like a kid.
Wow. Sure.
And it's beautiful. And, and he's all okay, and he was Sonny, and we did it. And I was going, man, I'm standing next to the guy. It sounds like, like being next to Coltrane, so it was beautiful. And so he found out through osmosis that I could range well. So I started hanging out with him because he was playing the streets, and we all played the streets to make money at that time, and we had to. And so he said, "Let's do a record together, but not under the Cosmos Max under Sonny Simmons, and I'll let you arrange it." So I helped him contact all those European labels like Engine, Black Saint, and whoever was around at that time. And for some reason, this is around 1980, 81. Okay. Right before I moved to New York, and I just left those blues groups I told you I was touring with. None of them were interested in Sonny. So fortunately, I have a great friend named Craig Morton, who's a record producer. And I said, "Craig, man, you should make a record on this guy, man. It's Sonny Simmons, So he did. And I did the arrangements for him. It's called Backwoods Suites on the ITM label with Billy Higgins, Joe Bonner, and Herbie Lewis, and then myself, and then a couple other horn players that were working with me when I was in the great Bobby Blue Bland band. By the way, Samo, speaking of Bobby Bland, just for a quick second, and get back to Sonny, because you're a guitar player.
Yeah.
When I was in the band, who one of the guitar players was? Mel Brown. I don't know if you ever seen his records on Impulse.
No.
He was on the Impulse label at the same time Train was and Oliver Nelson. Okay. Yeah, the Wizard, 16 pounds of chicken fat. He was incredible. He was kind of like a George Benson. Oh, he was brilliant.
And Wayne, this guy. Okay.
So I was lucky. If you go on YouTube, there's a video of me playing Bobby Bland called Bobby Bland Live in Chicago, 1981. There's a couple of them, and you'll hear Mel Brown and the great Wayne Bennett. So I was fortunate to be in band besides BB and Albert King. I was playing some of the greatest guitar players in the world. Anyway,
that's amazing. Yeah.
Going back to Sonny. So Sonny did that record, and thanks to Craig Morton. And so then after that, things kind of fizzled out. And I said, it's time to go to New York. And like I told you earlier, and study, learn, meet people. And that's when I moved here. And so for a 10-year period, Sonny was in San Francisco and playing in the streets and blah, blah, blah. And I'm here in New York and trying to establish myself. And I'm, like you say, I'm a ready, little older. And so then in the 90s, speeding up, Sonny got, again, through Craig Morton, he got produced for Quest Records, Quest Warner. And it was a big comeback for him. He did Ancient Ritual and American Jungle, which I sort of co-arranged, even though I didn't get the credit I should have on the record, but I arranged the record for him.
That's a great record.
But yeah. So anyway, so then by that time it was 95 and stuff like that. And then, there was a record label called CMIP, and CMIP recorded Sonny for twice, and Sonny hired me to be on those 2 records with Charles Moffett and the great Steve Neal, great bass player. And it was a sad thing because Moffett had cancer at that time, and Bob Roosh, he was the producer for Simp Records. Excuse me. And Bob said, Moffett had called me to do a date, his own trio date with his son and me as a saxophone player. I go, "This is incredible, man. I'm going to be on a record besides with Sonny improvising with Charles Moffat, but unfortunately he passed away before that date happened. Anyway, so Sonny, those 2 dates on Sonny's records are great. Transcendence and Judgment Day, and I'm just the side man. And he wrote this one tune on there called Cosmo. Well, Roosh spelled it wrong. He put Cosmosomotics or something like that, but it was the Cosmosomatics. And then a few years later, Sonny, his name was getting back in Europe and he was touring, and he settled in New York. And we started practicing every day. He'd ring my buzzer, man, and Low,
beautiful, man. Wow.
And young James Carter. They're all coming over here.
Oh, wow.
Practicing. My apartment, you wouldn't believe it. And so we just decided, let's put a group together. But he didn't want to put it under Sonny's name because he has his own thing. He didn't particularly need me to, so he figured it'd be better, and we figured it'd be better to do it as a co-led band. Yeah. Cosmos, he originated. He was the father of the band, the father of the title. Okay, but I was the co-leader. Okay. Yeah, we had equal writing credits, and we were, he was the leader, I was the co-leader. That's the way it went. And then we started having different configurations of people over here. It's the first record we had William Parker and James Carter as guests on that record. It was a classic when Sonny and James were here practicing in my living room. It was incredible. But anyway, So that's how we started Cosmosomatics, and then it started moving pretty good. We had a booking agent who was problematic, but he did help us get to Europe several times. And it went like that, and we did a pretty good. I think we did about 9 records together as the Cosmos.
It's a burning group. I remember. I was like, after I left, I was like, man, I think I even have a CD or 2 CDs of I bought them maybe on the concert.
There's one we did. One of the last ones we did was in 2006, where we really went like free on it. It was called "Free Within the Law" on Not To. If you want, I can get you a
Polish label, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, email me your address so I can send you a couple of things.
Oh, please. I would love that. Yeah, I don't have that one. Oh, wow.
Yeah, just email me. It'll be my pleasure.
Wow. No, I love the group. Like I said, I remember leaving the concert, and I was totally into Ornette back then, and Eric Dolphy. And it was kind of in that vein, like really open yet composed also, really nice melodies and then blowing. I was like, damn.
Because Sonny was connected to the tradition, and that's the way I always stayed. Sonny heard Charlie Parker live in 1949, and I'd asked him about that when he saw Bird, and he grew up next door to John Handy. And there's another brilliant guy. He's 90 years old. He's still there in Oakland. And those guys came up. Handy was playing with Mingus. Sonny played the Dolphin and Coltrane and all that stuff. And we had this group together and tried to keep that tradition. And it was, the heads were tight. And it was on the high level, and we didn't get the recognition we should have got.
Yeah, but it's recorded, it's in the history, it's in the books. So
yeah, right. People will catch up to it someday. Hopefully.
I hope so too. Yeah, I mean,
hey,
interviews like that or whatever exposure it's possible to get to great music. I think that's important. That's important.
And Free Within the Law. Yeah, that was one of the last ones. We did one too with indie musicians. You ever heard that one called Jazz Malika? That's very nice.
No.
Yeah. Really? That's kind of probably really hard to get in Europe. Yeah, email me your address.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, the Cosmos. And then we did 3 on Box Holder, and there's one we did called Cosmosomatics 3, where it's just me, Sonny, and Jay. Man, there's a tune Sonny wrote called, something about funk. It's so funky, it's really funky. We do a tune I wrote for Anne Frank, Requiem for Frank, and that's a nice record.
Beautiful, man. Wow.
Yeah. Unfortunately, man, around 2011, with our last tour was 2011, and we actually went to Ukraine.
Wow.
Zaporizhzhia, is that how you say it? And we went there 2011. And afterwards, Sonny came back and he started having back problems. And unfortunately, Sonny fell and had a serious accident, and it kind of altered his career. And he had to live in a nursing home until he passed away. But what an honor it was to be in a band with him, and and we manned our battle stations.
Oh man, just the connection you had, to horns. It's beautiful. Like
it was something.
Yeah. You mentioned Ted Daniel before, and beside the Cosmosomatics, you had the Duology project with Ted, and
Right.
this is another one of those which is like quite underrated, I think, if when I look
Absolutely.
at it. Like,
Absolutely.
what's the story there?
Well, okay, so like I said, I've kept a real great friendship with Ted. I mean, I spoke to him yesterday. We speak all the time. He lives up in Austin. In fact, he hired me for a gig recently, one of his gigs. But we both wanted to do something unique, and I love John Carter and Bobby Bradford. They were like the founding fathers of that concept, clarinet and trumpet. So we were the second group to do it in that tradition, but in our own way. So we didn't sound like them. And fortunately, we got Black Saint Solo recorded us, Golden Adams. We did one for Boxholder, and then we did two with other musicians. We did one with Andrew Cyril.
Yeah, and Henry.
It's yeah, and then the one on Henry, we did one with Henry Grimes. That's an incredible record. Yeah. That's on Ted's own label. Do you have that?
I have it in MP3 on my computer.
Okay, cool. Because I love a few LPs of it, but that
how was it with Henry? How did you hook up with Henry?
Actually? Oh, incredible, man! It was incredible. You talk about a genius. Oh my God, that guy. Ted just called him. It was Ted's production, and we did it up at. It was a beautiful guy, Ben Young. He was a DJ up at WKCR and also part of the university up there at Columbia. And we did it up there on 2-inch tape, I think, or a 1/2-inch tape. It was the old analog way. And yes, Sonny, Ted had called Henry. I mean, Ted and I talked about it. I said, let's get. We both suggested Henry would be a good idea, and Ted produced it for his record label, and. Henry was incredible, man. And it was, again, I've been blessed to be able to record with all these giants in the music, Henry Grimes, Andrew Cyril, Jackie Byard, Dennis Charles, all these guys.
Yeah, you played with Jackie, right? In his band? Or
yeah, I did 2 records with Jackie. Michael Marcus meets Jackie Byard, and Michael Marcus with the Jackie Byard Trio with Ralph Imperian and Richard Allen. Those are both in the Just in Time label out of Montreal.
Canada, yeah.
When
did you when did you play the first time with Jackie?
For those records, actually the record preceding those was speaking of guitar, this guy's one of the great guitar players of the world, Bruce Edwards, chordal genius, brilliant guitarist. His uncle was John Orr, the bassist with Bruce is a brilliant guitar player. So we did a record on Just in Time called Reachin'. And it did so well that Jim West at Just in Time said, I'll record you again, but you need, because not a name that sells that big, obviously. So he said, we need a big name. And so my friend, may rest in peace, Tim Price, said, hey, man, why don't you call Jackie Byard? Because Jackie plays blues like you do, and he can play free, and he can play bebop. He plays everything. I go, Jackie Byard, are you kidding me? And I go, I don't know Jackie. This is when I know. So I called Jackie up and I said, Jackie, my name is Michael Marcus, man. Pleasure to meet you. I have a record date coming up with Just in Time, and it'd be a pleasure to have you on the date. Would you be interested? And he's all, look, he goes, I don't know who you are. And he goes, before I record with anybody, you got to send me the music. Let me hear what you sound like and the charts for the tunes you want to do. Now, these, again, were my originals that I had to write chords for. So I did that. I sent them Under the Wire and Here At, the 2 records. Okay. And some of the stuff from each of those 3 that I'd done before, and the charts of the new ones. And he called me back and said, yeah, I like it. You're original. You're not trying to copy everybody. I'll do it. This is my price. So I went back to Jim West at Just Time, said, Jackie wants this money for it. And he's agreed to do it. But on Jackie's terms, and Jackie's terms were this. I had to take a train, a long hour ride train, and, bus to get to his place. And he wanted to rehearse regularly until we got it together, because he was already 75 at that time and not in perfect shape. And it was a whirlwind of a great experience. He did the 2 records, and we did tour all of Canada and Chicago and LA. And it was a great time. Unfortunately, he had a tragic death. And we were supposed to do a European tour, and it never materialized. But it was again, I was blessed to be with one of the giants.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, because when I was growing up, when we had that recording he did with Roland Kirk, the Jackie Byard Experience on Prestige. Knew that. I mean, of course, we knew Jackie from the Mingus records with Dolphy and Clifford Jordan.
Sure.
So again, there I am, man. The guy from Daly City, playing with Jackie Byard in the studio was really, really wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like, I went the other day to your website, and just you have really a cool list of who you played with, because I think it's everyone there. It's like I went through the names. I was like, really? Like I don't think anyone is missing. Almost, like, seriously. And but I wanted to ask you about two names who I really love, and you played with them, like Henry Threadgill and Butch Morris. When did you connect with them? And
well, I only worked with Henry once, but I talked to him and I'm very cordial with him because Ted Daniels, like one of his best friends. So that's sort of my connection. But I've had many coffees with them. But one time in the Saxophonist, that was Frank Lowe's group that we then had that sort of like the Cosmos Semantics. It was actually Frank originated the group, and there's a record called Frank Lowe and the Saxophonist, and James Carter's
and Carl Swart, right? That one. No,
pardon?
It's with Carl Swart and James Carter, right?
That's right.
Yeah, sure.
One, with Phil Wilson.
Yeah.
So that was the first one involved into just the Saxophonist later, because James got so big, so they just couldn't just put Frank's name on it. But Threadgill, one time we had a gig here in town, and James, because James' career was going so big at that time, he came in and played for James. So that was the gig I did. And Butch Morris, however, called me to do the Vision Festival for his conduction big band.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
I did that I rehearsed with him a couple of times and did the Vision Festival with him. He wanted some kind of what he called more jazz improviser. So he hired me and Abraham Burton, another fine player.
I love Abraham. Yeah. Beautiful.
And I think Vincent Chansey was on that. And so he wanted a few cats, more like us in there. And so I rehearsed him a couple. He hired me for the Vision Festival, did the conduction big band, and that was my encounter with Butch. But always cordial, because I knew his brother, who was a cool guy, Wilbur Morris, really great bass player.
Yeah, sure, of course. Wow, amazing. Yeah. No, it's just so much you've done, like, considering.
I guess I wish I had a few extra dollars to show for it, like because work fluctuates, and. Like with the Cosmos Semantics is a good example. You can have an artistic resume that's very prestigious, like myself. It doesn't mean everything is floating on a euphoric balance, if you will.
Yeah, especially nowadays. I think it's like almost these resumes don't mean anything. Almost, when you offer to a promoter
nothing,
band, it's like who you play, like whatever.
Yeah, anybody can have a CD now. And these days, back in the days when you had an album, when that's when when you had an album and you had like a Blue Note record, like Hank Mobley, Soul Station. It was something, man. But now everybody in the whole block and your neighbor and your neighbor's mother and aunt and everybody can put a CD out. It means nothing.
It's
plus,
like a card.
There's so much the politics in music now to get a gig and be part of the community musician is really heavy, and I'm not part of that. I'm not really good at that. I don't do that, and it's kind of square anyways, so the hipness has left jazz big time,
Yeah, but you still play gigs in New York, I mean, or?
Well, once in a while, as I said, so work's kind of slow, as I was saying, you can have a great discography, doesn't mean you're getting a lot of gigs. Like, I'm not good at calling promoters and calling, critics. Some people woo critics, and I never do that kind of stuff. So like you say, you mentioned, these records and stuff like that, but how many people really talk about them? But other people are like in social media are constantly just pushing their stuff on people. And I guess maybe that's what you have to do, but I don't do that. So I just, fortunately I'm able to survive because of a cheap apartment in New York and just living basic, but stay true to the music's the main thing, no matter, even if you're a billionaire or you ain't got a penny,
Sure. Yeah. No, but
true music.
There are people, I think, including myself, who follow your work and have followed it, and have records. And of course, it's
well,
not
you're
enough to
good.
pay the rent or anything, but yeah, it's just I think
That's wonderful. Well, life's wonderful. I mean, just to be alive is, every day you hear about all these. Richard Davis died, and this guy died, and that guy, and you hear these giants dying, and it's always so sad. And then people who might not even have the biggest name, and like I was having a conversation the other day with this sax player's one of the best in New York, man. No one even talks about him. Bob Mover. Do you know who he is?
Bob Mover?
He's brilliant.
Yeah, sure.
Tradition of Bird.
Yeah, sure.
He's incredible.
Yeah,
he's incredible. You ever interviewed him?
No, I couldn't get his.
You should interview that guy, man. He's like my generation. He's a monster, but how many people talk about him? Or
it's hard to get context of some players, like even Ted Daniel. I mean, I'll ask you later for his email if you have it.
Well, not an interview, but I can give you a few comments. He'd probably love to interview with you. He's a lovely man. I
love his music, but he doesn't have a website, or many of these guys don't, and it's like,
he's been working on putting one, because he has his own label, which I don't. He has his own label, and he just put out a wonderful LP. It's a double LP of his band Energy from the 70s, and it's great. And he's got some really I'll put you in contact with him. And
I'll send you an email after this, and then maybe you can give me some ideas. Yeah, I'd love to. But Michael, what's on the otherwise? I mean, for you still on the schedule, like you said, this new record that was planned for September is postponed.
Because since I'm not really working too much, so if anybody hears this interview in Europe and want to come and play for you guys like everybody else, they need to have some different people once in a while. So please hire us. But I'm really looking forward to the second ESP, because it's just to be on that label is very special. And I have a few different ideas. I'm not quite sound yet on who's going to be participating in the date, but it'll be. I'm going to use different people this time than the last session, but it'll be great.
I don't doubt it. Yeah,
my woodwinds like Octavin. See the Octavin? Do you know
wow.
this instrument?
Yeah. Wow.
It's an Octavin. See, so you want to hear?
Please.
Let's
yeah.
Let's see if the read.
What is this? I mean, where does this come from? Or
it's an Octavin it's a single reed instrument, but it's got like a bassoon. It's got
bassoon
two chambers.
Yeah, beautiful sound,
but is like German system, they call it. So and it's got that oboe.
Yeah, the oboe vibe. Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing.
I never heard anyone play this. Wow, that's
well, there's only two of us that I know of that really work on it, and that I know is the great Scott Robinson, another genius. And plays everything. He's brilliant. He plays everything. And me.
Wow, man.
Yeah,
looking forward.
I'll probably include that. Actually, that instrument's on. I've done. It's on one of my not twos called Stone Jump. And then it's on one of the Blue Reality Quartets, the one we just did for Mahakala, called Ella's Island with Joe McPhee. And that playing tenor. It's great.
Yeah, it's beautiful, gentle sound. Nice, fantastic, man.
So that's all, man. Just trying to. But I got a lot of great original. I got a stack of tunes, and I just, hope to get as many as I can documented. But I'm really looking forward. I like being on ESP. It's a cool label to be on, just for the historical connection of the past, and this will be ESP number 2. And so hopefully he'll be able to do this before the end of the year, and it'll be out in 2024.
Fantastic, man. Beautiful. Yeah. If you have some music, send me over. I'll play it.
Oh yeah. Make sure if you go to my website, michaelmarcusmusic.com, there's an email there. Just said, you already emailed me.
We already emailed each other. Yeah.
Email me your address, and then I'll see what you like. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Thank you, man. Michael, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate it.
You're a good man. How's your music going, man?